think we'll get started at 7 o'clock. So firstly, I'd like to welcome members of our community who might be watching on live stream, council members and council staff to this session. We'd also like to acknowledge the land that we gather on tonight is the traditional lands for the Gawler people, and that we respect their spiritual relationship with their country. We also acknowledge the Gawler people as the custodians of the Greater Adelaide region, and that their cultural and heritage beliefs are still as important to the living Gawler people today. This session has been convened for the purpose of briefing council members on the draft objectives and strategies that council staff have developed as part of the Gawler Community Plans review, and to seek council member feedback on these draft objectives and strategies. This session will be used solely for the purpose of information sharing and not for the purpose of debating issues, building consensus positions, or otherwise discharging council's deliberative and decision-making functions. Members of our community are encouraged to listen to the information provided to council, but refrain from general conversation. There's no one in the gallery tonight, but people who are watching online, you know, they might want to feed back. Should the session become disruptive, no, that's not going to happen. There is no set agenda, no minutes will be taken during this session. To limit disruption to the session, any mobile phones brought into the session are to be switched off, switched to silent or vibration alert mode, with telephone calls not to be taken within the immediate vicinity of the session. So if you do need to take a phone call, take it outside. Should there be a requirement, there won't be a requirement to go into confidence. I've been assured by David that that won't occur. So I'll hand over to David Barrett and Bryce Norton, who will take us through this session. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Redman, and welcome members. So, as the Mayor pointed out, tonight is going through the draft objectives and strategies that staff have worked on over the last 6 or 7 weeks, and then to get your feedback on them. We provided the draft to members about a week ago for your information, so hopefully you've had a chance to read and digest a bit. There was a fair bit of work done from the current objectives and strategies to create the new ones. So on your tables you have a version of current, which has the coloured stripes on the side, and a version of new, which is labelled draft in the bottom right corner for your information. And I'll be going through tonight each of the objectives one by one as a page turner, starting at 1.1 and working all our way through to 5.2. And we'll go through them, and you can raise your comments and feedback on each of those objectives and strategies. So we'll get started. So the first one is on screen for everyone. Sorry, jump to 2. So I'll open it to the floor for comments, feedback on all of these, which is 1.1, 1.11, 1.2 and 1.3. For context, Bryce and I will be taking some notes tonight based on your feedback, and we'll be looking to present reports through to the May CCS meeting. So if we're not maintaining eye contact, we're writing feverishly.
So Gawler remains unique and distinct from its neighbouring areas, foster a vibrant and active local community that is proud of Gawler, protect and promotes Gawler's unique history. Yep.
Thank you, Mayor. 1.1.1, while I don't mind the word develop town planning policies, I'd like to also continue to keep the word strategies, because I think the original thing which said develop strategies to recognise and promote Gawler are not limited just to town planning policies. I think there's more which go into other parts of council as well that need to be. So I would just make it strategies and town planning policies.
So just to clarify, are you looking at the existing draft,
yes,
which is on screen?
Yep.
So you want to add and town planning policies?
So develop strategies.
Oh, hang on.
So you're
We've
looking
got
at
the
the
new
current one. There is a version of
This
the
is the
new
new
with
one.
draft
This
in the
is the new
bottom
one.
corner.
That's the new one.
Okay, sorry, I've got it the wrong way round. So the
Yep.
one all right, got it. Okay,
So-
that's fine then. Please ignore all the rest of it, I was looking at the wrong version.
That's
So,
okay.
Yep, so I'm quite happy. If we go to 1.2.3,
Sorry, we'll stay on 1.1 for now.
okay, right.
We'll work through that and then
Yep.
we'll go through the others as we go. Yep.
So are there any other comments around 1.1? Councillor Kosh.
Yeah, just 1.1.1. I think over the years I've felt that we've watered down the view that Gawler is a distinct community from the rest of urban Adelaide, and I think this is more watering down of that. Yeah.
How would you?
Well,
What would you put? How would you describe 1.1.1? Develop strategies that recognise.
But more than just a strong sense of identity. I think it's to maintain our identity as a separate town, basically.
As a separate town.
Yeah, because I think that's what it was. A couple of iterations beforehand, our community plan was really identifying Gawler as maintaining Gawler as a separate town.
What it says over here. And maintain a real sense of distinction from its surrounding areas.
Yeah, but that's the I mean, what is the distinction? Is it distinction the fact that we've got different buildings or something? But I think from my view, and from a lot of people I speak in the community, that they like to see and they want to maintain the physical separation from Greater Adelaide.
Okay.
And that's really important for people.
So would you maintain a real sense of distinction from its surrounding areas or
Basically,
not?
yeah, and
You would add that?
yeah, and I would get away from creating a strong sense of identity. I think that's watering down that.
Create a strong sense of identity. It doesn't make much sense.
No,
does
it's
it?
sort of, to me, it's
Yeah.
it's watering down the.
So you would go back and maintain a real sense of distinction from its surrounding
Yeah,
areas?
basically, yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
yeah.
Councillor Solomon?
Thanks, Mayor. I think in particular that one, the phrasing of it, the create there, I think is an important one, just simply because it to me, it's pointing to this sense of sort of evolution of the town. I mean, Gawler doesn't look like the picture up there on the wall behind yourself, Mayor, and Andrew. It's different now. I think that when we're talking about particularly conserving our green spaces and things in natural sort of environment, it's okay to use that kind of language because we're not changing that through human methods. But I think when we're talking about the sense of identity as a town, if we start to, we want to acknowledge that it's something separate, but it's something growing and evolving over time rather than something that's stagnant. That's my interpretation of that kind of language. Mm-hmm. I mean, it could be changed in a way, I think, which brings that sense of evolution, acknowledging the past into it, but I think the word maintain or those stagnant kind of words would actually just draw away from that.
So you create a strong sense of identity?
I like create more than maintain. There may be a word, like I said, I don't have it off the top of my head now, and it's just feedback for staff, but something which points more to the evolution and that acknowledgement of the past, but continuing growth of our identity. But definitely not the word maintain is what I'm saying. To me, that's too stagnant.
Yes.
Yeah, look, I'm not saying Gawler's not going to evolve. I'm saying that if evolution means that we're going to be part of houses from Noarlunga to the other side of Roseworthy, with tiki-taki houses all the way through, I don't think that's a vision that the people of Gawler want. I mean, it's nothing about being that anymore, but it's about creating That
No.
distinct
We're
identity.
we're not going back.
No, I'm not going there. But
We're not going back
No,
there.
but we do evolve as a town. But the community that overwhelmingly, I think the community is saying we don't want to be part of greater, just being consumed by Greater Adelaide, and that is really a huge, motivation, or it is huge in Gawler. That is
So,
absolutely huge.
One of the things with our team charter, the first point on there is that we respect other people's opinions. So I'm looking at David and Bryce to meld these two areas, and I know that you've got a particular view, Councillor Solomon, and you've got a particular view, but we can meld that too. I think we can meld that together, and
So through the Chair, just a quick question,
yes.
probably more to Councillor Kosh. Is the distinction covered in 1.1.2, where we say retaining Gawler's distinction from surrounding areas?
No, because I've been involved with this for a while, so it's probably unfair to the newer councillors. But the word distinction was, we've got heritage buildings, we've got a parks, we've got a river, and that was viewed as the distinction between other towns. I think it's more than that.
It is more than that?
It's more than that.
So how would you describe Gawler?
Well, I think Gawler is a place that is separate from Greater Adelaide to start with. It has a history. It has certain environmental assets.
And certainly with the structure plan down in the southern urban areas, there will be elements of green belt, and I think that will distinguish between us and Greater Adelaide.
Not necessarily. I mean, you've already got a green belt. You've already got vistas and everything else. But if you fill them up with houses, you've lost it. You've actually absolutely lost it.
Yeah,
That's
Helen?
the problem.
I'm doing the wordsmithing. I was just wondering if we put the word a strong sense of a separate identity into 1.1.1, would that keep the word create, which is Councillor Solomon's, but also perhaps for Councillor Kosh, who I do agree, puts a separate identity.
So, just say those words again, Helen.
So it would be develop strategies that recognise and promote Gawler as a regional hub and create a strong sense of a separate identity.
Separate identity.
A separate entity.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Would that work for you, Councillor Kosh?
For tonight.
I beg.
For tonight it will. Yep.
Okay. So I think we've covered off on Councillor Solomon's words and your words, and we've melded them together. Are you comfortable with that?
I think I don't want to be too prescriptive with what words we have in here, because ultimately staff are going to redraft it. Unfortunately, I think I would say that while I understand that I would prefer a word like unique identity as opposed to separate. I think it tends towards an isolationist view of the town, but I think unique captures that it's different identity, but it's not isolationist, and it's the way
So
it is.
you'd prefer the word unique?
Oh, I prefer the word unique. That's what I would prefer, yeah.
Okay. No,
So,
you're not happy?
Mayor, if I could,
Okay.
Councillor Kosh, just thinking through 1.1.2, so looking at the next one, if we were to add separation and after the word Gawler, so it's enhanced views and vistas through the provision of open space, retaining Gawler's separation and distinction from surrounding areas.
Would that work?
Rather than trying to create a separate identity, because I believe what I'm hearing, is, and correct me if I'm wrong, is the physical separation from other areas.
Yeah.
So if we added it to 1.1.2, I think we cover that off.
Yeah. Okay, so...
I just want to say that Gawler for decades this is exactly what they've been saying for decades. It's not something I've made up tonight, but they've been over and over and over for 30, 40 years, decades.
Many people say that to me.
It's just reality.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I think anybody else would like to have a go, and yes.
Thanks, Mayor. Just 1.1.3. I just had a question. So obviously comparing the new draft to the old one, a lot of things have been consolidated and simplified, I'd say, which overall I think is fantastic, like having a read through it. So the one about local government boundary realignments is exactly the same as before. I guess I'm just wondering, reasoning behind that, thinking that, you know, as it stands at the moment, the Boundaries Commission are proceeding. Is there, like, I guess I was just wondering maybe what was the thinking behind just replicating it? Or I guess in my head I'm suggesting maybe is there a way we can kind of evolve it like we've gone from safeguard to enhance? Like, is there maybe a way we can develop it? But just wanted to hear staff's reasoning maybe first, if that's right.
So it was deliberate to keep it as it was, as we are still in that promotion phase of those realignments, and it was also to acknowledge that whilst we have a boundary reform proposal in at the moment, it may not be the end of Town of Gawler's journey in boundary realignment and consideration. As our communities of interest evolve, we still need to promote the opportunities around that for our communities of interest. So, and we don't have an outcome yet from the Commission to say implement the Commission change, and that's a little bit too action-y for a high-level strategic document. So that was kind of the context about keeping it as it was, Councillor White.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. I guess, so the only sort of suggestion I might say, and I'm just sort of having a quick look through, this section may be the appropriate one to include, but just something when we're talking about our unique township, just so we don't seem completely isolated, if there's something maybe we can potentially add in or somewhere that I'd like to see reflect about working with the region as a whole. So like being unique while also, I guess, I don't know the exact words, but if there was something, I don't know whether that goes in 1.1.3, but something about, you know, where with the communities of interest.
Well, may I suggest that would go provide strategic leadership. That would be an extra point down there.
Oh, yep.
From memory, it's in there somewhere, and we'll get to that.
Locally,
in 5.
Yep.
So,
that's good. Yeah, 5.1.
Yep.
Yep, that's good. All good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for those comments.
Yep.
Any other comments? Councillor Lorna, would you like to make some comment?
Look, reading through it, and I actually think that they've pretty well covered the sentiment, what we're looking for. We've got the distinctions from the areas in 1.1.2. We're going for the strong sense of identity, which I feel Gawler really has, which is striving for, and what we all want to see around the room. So I haven't got any qualms or challenges or issues with what they've provided at this point. So,
okay,
thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Deputy Mayor, do you want to have a comment?
Yeah, I've just been trying to figure out whether it would fit in the goal 1 or goal 2, but just in terms of the unique distinction, just something maybe about having a unique distinction, keeping that in mind with growth inside the township, basically, like the idea of, you know, if a new estate comes online in, you know, Hillier or Cudler or where Gawler East or wherever, that part of being unique is making sure that that's not just an enclave, not just a silo, but is built to go into the ecosystem of Gawler.
So you want a connectivity. You want a connectivity there. So bringing in the old with the new. Is that what you're? Is that? Have I interpreted that right?
Yeah. Well, so more about just sort of. Because the biggest threat to us as a uniquely identifiable township, in my view, is that growth happens within our council borders, but that growth doesn't lead to people who view Gawler as a distinct and unique town that's their home. And so just a way to sort of incorporate that.
Yep.
Yeah, Helen?
I think it's covered in 2, and we'll get there, around integrated development.
So I might read 1.2 out. Foster a vibrant and active local community that is proud of Gawler. Provide and encourage the community activation of key civic locations. build community capacity through meaningful partnerships that respond to community needs and promote Gawler as a welcoming town, develop and maintain local amenity to enhance civic pride. Now, David, would you like to explain the three sentences I've read out?
Certainly, Mayor. So regarding 1.2.1, that is encouraging community to activate our civic facilities such as the Civic Centre, our parks and reserves, our sport and community centre, elderly centre. So we both provide activities and we encourage community to activate.
Yeah.
In terms of 1.2.2, building capacity through partnerships that respond to community needs. So that could be partnerships with locals, external agencies, regional partnerships, any kind of partnership. So we've globalised that up rather than being specific about local. And promoting Gawler as a welcoming town. That's a very much an advocacy piece to attract people to come and live in Gawler.
Yeah.
And then the final piece, developing and maintaining that local amenity, ensuring that we keep on top of clean street services, all those sorts of things, beautification, maintaining and enhancing civic pride. So when you're living in Gawler, you're proud to live in Gawler because council's delivering what you want council to deliver for the amenity of your place.
Thank you for that. Helen?
Yeah, what the Deputy Mayor is talking about, I think we can capture under 3.2, which is, or it's talking about community sport and recreation facilities.
Well,
when we get to that point,
yeah.
we can talk to it.
Yep, we can talk to that. So you can add those. You've got great wordsmithing skills, Helen. So, yeah, that would be quite useful. Any discussion on 1.2? No? Yes?
Just quickly add that I do like some of the reduction in there, because there was a couple of things in the old one which I thought were probably more aligned with Goal 5 in there, which I always looked at and went, that's a bit strange that that's in Goal 1, particularly around like shops and things, which is not really our identity.
What was in the old one that you wanted?
Things like, it says 1.2.4, develop a vibrant township with its reinforced by which is reinforced by its historic character, variety of readily accessible parks, shops, services, sports, events and entertainment. And I would have thought that that was a strong and vibrant community as opposed to a unique township, because we're not necessarily tied to which specific shop is in the main street. But that's
one, develop a vibrant township which is reinforced by its historic character and variety of readily accessible parks, shops, services, sports, events and entertainment. You want that put back in?
No, I'm saying that just the feedback is that I think that has been moved to a more appropriate place, which is Goal 5, which is a strong and vibrant community. So
yeah,
I was just.
So we'll go.
Yeah.
We'll deal with that then.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. It's good that it's been. That was just the feedback. Yeah.
Yep. Thank you. Any other feedback? No. Okay. 1.3, protect and promote Gawler's unique history. Continue to recognise the traditional custodians of Gawler, their heritage, culture and beliefs and ongoing connection to the land, and actively demonstrate and promote reconciliation. Build community understanding of Gawler's history. Encourage the conservation and promotion of Gawler's significant heritage and unique architecture. Any comments around that? Shall we move on?
They are two. One is recognising the past, and one is a very present and future endeavour. I'm not. I think perhaps they all warrant their distinct parts in there. The reconciliation being separate from the acknowledgement of the history.
1.3.3 is in the old document. Be a community leader in promoting reconciliation between Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders and other Australians. Do you want that put back in? So we might need to reword 1.3.1.
So I'll just clarify with Councillor Solomon. If we were to put the reconciliation objective as a separate dot point, that's what you're meaning, and then we can wordsmith that. We may leave it as 1.3.2, a new 2, actively demonstrate and promote reconciliation. Just separate it out. Is that the intent that you were going for? Yep.
I think it probably should be put back in.
Yep, that's fine.
Facilitate, be a community leader in promoting reconciliation. I think it covers off on Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders and other Australians. But you will need to reword 1.3.1. Yeah, okay. Any other comments on a uniquely identifiable township? Yes, yes, yes.
So,
Yes, I'll go to Councillor Lorna first.
Mate, sorry about that, mate. You're on the wrong side of the table.
Yes.
Just touching base on the reconciliation side of things.
Yes.
I agree with everything that's been said there, but I think the actual was going for protect and promote the Gawler's unique history, which covers the traditional custodians of the land and the like, where we should move promote the reconciliation part to the health and active, safe and engaged community.
Okay, yep. That's a really good idea. Thank you, Councillor Lorna. Deputy Mayor? Were you going to say the same thing? Yeah. Oh, right, okay. So any other comments on goal 1?
Yeah, encourage the adaptive reuse of heritage buildings to contribute to economic revitalisation and heritage conservation, which is 1.3.5. Just wondering why that's, I can't see how that's been melded in. So it's still very topical, and I think.
So you'd like that put back in?
Well, I'll just raise it as to why it was pulled out and how do others feel about it disappearing.
I think part of Gawler's history is its history and our architecture, and adaptive reuse of buildings is actually quite an economic boost to revitalisation and heritage conservation. Might be worth putting it back in. So we'll
just encourage the conservation, adaptive reuse and promotion.
say that again, Helen.
So, if I may, regarding adaptive reuse, etc., that from our context, we've moved into growth. So it'll come up in part 2, because we didn't think it related directly to a uniquely identifiable township. It more related to what we do in respectful development, if that makes sense.
I'm going to go to growth. I'm going to go to growth, goal 2, managed and sustainable growth over the page. Okay, David, would you? Oh yes, thank you. Yes.
Regarding what Councillor Lanner and Deputy Mayor said about item 1.31, we've never really had the community agree with what that. Are we doing the right thing there by the community here? I'm going by the voting on the voice and other things that have happened. This council has never ever heard, exactly what the Aboriginal people think of how we are operating a council and our plans into the future. Mm-hmm. I heard what Councillor Lowner said and what Deputy Mayor said, but it seems to always come up, the factor that we have to do this. Our community has not told us that. Now, maybe they've told everybody else in the room, but they haven't told me and the people that I'm associated with. So I'm just wondering, is it the right way to go, or is there a better way to word those things?
I had a conversation with Tim Graham. He's related to Mullamar Graham, and he felt he needed to live in Gawler. He came back to Gawler. He's a single dad with 2 children. They go to Gawler and District College. And he's very happy with how we're running our reconciliation. He's actually quite he's actually very happy with how we're running our reconciliation, and he's Tim Graham. He runs his own company. He was thinking of moving out, but we had a bit of a conversation, and he feels that his roots are here, and he loves what we're doing with reconciliation.
We were also oversubscribed for, when we did a community call for members of our RAP working group, and we had 9 from which we chose 7. And that was very strong, 9 very strong and quite diverse people from around our community who feel that the council is doing some excellent work and wanted to be a part of it and contribute their skills and energy. So from my point of view, that's reflective of the community that does want us to play in this area.
Yeah. So there are many Aboriginal people who live here, and they feel quite welcome here. They feel quite welcome. Yeah. Councillor Kosh.
Also, from my understanding, at the health centre, there's an important community health unit that provides services for Aboriginal people, and a lot of people do come in, actually from outside of Gawler, because they feel safe, comfortable and respected.
So I think from my perspective, not your perspective, but from my perspective, I feel that we're doing really good work in reconciliation. I think that we are nailing our reconciliation aims.
The only other thing before we move out of this is that so much words have been said about identity. Could somebody please explain to me the word identity? I mean, when you say identity, I happen to know that the neighbouring councils are at the present time looking into changing their whole theme for the names of Light Country, Bross or something, or whatever it may be. What is that identity that we're going to promote?
David?
So the way we're looking at promoting the identity of Gawler is it's esteemed in heritage in terms of the architecture of the 19th century significance, but it's also a place of gathering and meeting and community connection for thousands and thousands of years through our Aboriginal community. It is a connected place. It's got clean living. It's a smart living facility. So there's multiple aspects, but also the identity comes to what an individual who's a resident of Gawler thinks Gawler is as well, and how they identify Gawler as being and how they are proud in Gawler. So it's very broad, Brian. We don't have one single point that Gawler is X in terms of an identity, because everyone brings different aspects of identity to it. So it's, unfortunately, I can't specifically explain identity in that regard, because it is very much a personal thing for individuals who live here.
Just finally, that's very well said, as you always do, and that sort of thing. But, 15 years ago, this town called for identity and a hashtag. So I'll be bold. Gawler, the best town in the country. Everybody still rings on it. Radio announcers and everybody still say the same thing. That's called an identity because it's a cash tag. And it's a tag that people can say, I live in Gawler, the best town in the country, in South Australia. We say now we live in Gawler. That's where I think I'm coming from. Maybe I'm too old for this game.
I respect what you have just said, Brian. That's very good words. So, goal 2, managed and sustainable growth. David, would you like to walk us through some of these 2.1 and 2.2, 2.3 and 2.4?
Certainly. So we'll stay on the 2.1 for now, and that's around the physical and social infrastructure to service growing population and economy. So the strategies underneath that link up to that one. And this is where we are talking to, I believe, the Deputy Mayor's comment around ensuring that new neighbourhoods form part of Gawler. It's covered in 2.1.2, where we say appropriately designed and integrated neighbourhoods. So they need to be integrated with what's existing, not isolated, as you were saying before. So we think it's covered there. We want to, in 2.1.1, plan for fit-for-purpose affordable industrial and commercial land with supporting infrastructure. So it needs to be the whole piece, not just parts. So we need to have the infrastructure there. In terms of the integrated and designed neighbourhoods, supporting a range of housing and lifestyle opportunities from affordable housing all the way through. And then the final one is planning for new and supporting existing community, social and rec facilities. So we think that one's fairly self-explanatory.
2.2?
If there's any feedback from members, they're happy to hear about it for 2.1.
2.1?
No, yeah, just wondering why, maybe it's me, why are we putting the industry first? Industrial and commercial land. I think I know the answer. I think we've had several discussions during the budget that we actually are at a deficit in this area and we've been focusing on it for a while.
Yes.
Would that be correct? Is that why it's there?
You're probably going a little bit further than we went. We were combining numbers below and around and just put 1, 2 and 3. Yeah. Quite happy to reorder. we weren't that strategic, I must say, in our numbering. So quite happy to bring 1.2 up, if that would be the way we want to go.
Yep, I'm going to say swap 1 and 2, perhaps. Yep. Because I still think this is predominantly, well, we know from our rates base that it's predominantly a residential town.
Yep.
Respectful of cultural growth to be sustainable and respectful of cultural and built heritage. I don't think you've nailed it. Promote development opportunities, including appropriate multi-storey, mixed-use developments that complement Gawler's character, encourage investment and respond to climate goals. Seek appropriate land use policy that guides development and encourage investment in Gawler while providing surety to residents and businesses. I'm not sure that that's been nailed. That complement Gawler's character. Well, I think it needs to be Gawler's character and built heritage. Mm-hmm. Gawler's character and built heritage, encourage investment and respond to climate goals. And that's quite important, climate goals. Any other comment, Councillor Solomon?
Thank you, Mayor. I guess it goes back to, I think, the point that Councillor Hennessy was making about adaptive reuse in under Goal 1, but I'm just looking for that here and where that's being captured.
There's nothing.
Because I think that under the old one it says, it specifically mentions building maintenance and adaptive reuse. Obviously adaptive reuse is linked to meeting our climate goals and that unique character, but I think the explicit mention of them is quite good in the old one, just because it really talks to the point that we're avoiding that sort of facadism that might come with heritage, where we're saying, you know, we don't just want something to look like it culturally fits with the town, but it actually does fit with the town.
Yeah, I think we need to incorporate adaptive reuse because adaptive reuse is what we do with heritage buildings. So where would that fit, David? 2.2.1?
Yeah, so we could quite easily create a new 2.2.3 or reorder, whichever you want, around that adaptive reuse. Yeah. Our initial thinking was it came into the complementing of character, but strengthening it through its own dot point, not a problem at all. We can work through that and wordsmith appropriately.
Okay,
I think
thank you.
If I may, in terms of, you know, when we're looking to seek investment and things in the town, I think that's an important, distinct point to make, so that people are aware that that's, you know, with heritage buildings, that's an opportunity for them to do that. So
I'd agree with that, and in fact, I'd put it before appropriate multi-storey mixed-use development. Well, certainly, I see that.
So you'd put You put 2.2.1 as a new
Well,
paragraph.
I don't really mind, but I'd like to see adaptive reuse well before multi-storey, because I think multi-storey is quite contentious. I think from the last, I don't know, it's been a number of years now, but when that's last time we did the Main Street study, the over pushing of multi-storey rather than the adaptive reuse of the existing two-storey buildings needs to be given priority.
So adaptive reuse a new 2.2.1. David?
Yeah, I'll leave it.
I'll go back to David.
We can, and I'm hearing from Councillor Solomon that strengthening it as a unique point is his preference in this regard, or we could add adaptive reuse into the brackets before appropriate multi-storey, but let us wordsmith that and bring it back through the CCS. Get a sense that a strengthening of that statement is required, so we'll work on that.
I'll go to other people. Ethan?
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, I just wanted to say I think this is a really good move forward from the previous goal 2. It speaks a lot about planning and what we're going to do, and implementing planning policies. This is actually looking at more action, which I think is fantastic. I also think that reading through the existing one, it's sort of being restrictive when it's talking about growth without saying, I guess, what the actual growth allowed or permitted or we want is, when this actually saying, no, this is what we're talking about explicitly in regards to mixed-use development, multi-storey, that complement our character. I think that's really great. And adding in what's been discussed about strengthening adaptive reuse, I think we'll just solidify that even more, because that shows that, yes, I think that completely ties into the overarching 2.2 about sustainable and growth that's respectful of built heritage. I think that's really good. I think, the second, 2.2.2, seek appropriate land use policy that guides development and encourages investment. Maybe if you could just explain a little bit, David, what does that look like in real life, I guess, when we're, seeking, it's all about words in these plans. Are we seeking, or are we implementing, or are we investigating? Is seek the right word there? Have we already been seeking?
So the choice of the word seek is because under the new planning system, it's governed by the Planning, Design and Infrastructure Act, which is state government legislation. Council doesn't have its own policy in that area anymore. So we need to seek the appropriate policy from government. You may say advocate to if you wanted, but we thought seek was actually a little bit more action-y in a way than just advocacy. It's a bit more direct in that regard, so that's why that term is there, Councillor White.
Okay. Are we comfortable with 2.1 and 2.2? Yes, Councillor Koch.
Yeah, 2.1. I'm just concerned that we're almost selling out our community to developers, basically. And when we talk about appropriate multi-storey, when we did the Main Street strategy planning, overwhelmingly people said we don't want multi-storey buildings that dwarf the existing buildings and take away from the importance of those structures. And looking at that just looks like to me we're selling out our heritage to the highest bidder, which I think is a problem. Because.
So how can we reword? We've got 3 stories in the Main Street. That was in the last urban design framework, and that was probably a good thing. But one of our great strengths is our heritage. And I don't think we realise just how different our Main Street is.
I mean, that's why I agree with adaptive reuse over, putting, just having a facade, as Councillor Solomon said, that we're not, because developers like to come into heritage area because it's of greater value. because they can actually make more money out of the heritage value of an area. That's what happened up at Church Hill, okay? That's why people have gone into there, because they can make more money out of a block of land there because of the heritage qualities compared to, a building out at Springwood. I mean, that's just the reality. So we have to be careful that we're not selling off our heritage to the highest bidder.
So you were going to wordsmith adaptive reuse, David? Is
Correct.
that what you were going to do?
Yeah, we're going to strengthen that
We're
concept
going to strengthen that. We're going to have
that.
a separate point. And I think that might be quite good.
But on top of that, just wanted to be clear that this is a community plan for the whole of Gawler.
I'll go.
So when we're talking about Main Street specific, that's the next layers down, where we would have an urban design framework review, which is in our draft budget, that will talk to those things. So we just need to be conscious that we're not getting to the lower level detail in terms of specific location, because this is a whole of Gawler community plan. So,
yeah. I'll go to Ethan, and then I'll go to Deputy Mayor.
Oh, thanks,
do
Mayor.
you want to speak?
Yeah, I'm just going to say exactly what David said, just keeping in mind this is a whole of community, a whole of town plan, not just the main street. When I read this, and I'm thinking of the community plan as, holistically guiding the future allocation of resources, and I see promote development, including multi-storey mixed-use development, that's what I read there is we're saying that we understand that to have managed and sustainable growth and to be sustainable and respectful of our cultural heritage, we as a council are recognising that mixed-use development is a sustainable way forward, and therefore we're going to promote and encourage that development as long as it aligns with Gawler's character. In a nutshell, that's how I read that. So I think that's more of a holistic vision. We're saying this is what we know is sustainable, we agree with it, and we're going to move forward. It's not anything about saying 3 stories in the main street. I think, as David said, that's the next level down.
I'd like to have built heritage in there. Yeah, so character and built heritage, and I just think the built heritage is quite stunning. It's quite stunning. Okay, 2.3. Yes.
Quickly. Just to reinforce some of that and use a specific example, I think there's obviously the main street, and that to me is captured in there. That would be an interpretation that some of the development might be inappropriate that Councillor Kosh was referring to. If we strengthen that word, that's fine, but I think there needs to be real something there which is talking about the rest of the town in the sense that we can have some higher density development where it is appropriate, because if we don't have that higher density development, we run the risk of getting urban sprawl, which is not what we want. So I think if you strengthen that, but I think there does need to be some sort of statement in there which pertains to that kind of higher density development, which is sustainable, which is tied into that transport infrastructure, which goes into point 3, etc. And the other thing, just quickly, was before I mentioned adaptive reuse, I also mentioned the building maintenance thing. That doesn't necessarily need to be in there, but I think we need to be clear that there's an expectation that if you are adapting a heritage building, that is maintained, because I think a lot of people who are investing, who have businesses, move into a heritage building and they assume that it's all sound, and then it's not. And I think that actually deters people from adapting those buildings because it's in such a state of disrepair.
I'm going to go to Deputy Mayor now because you wanted to speak.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was going to talk about the 2.3, but
Go for it.
So, because it mentions so 3.1 is basically about the train line, 3.2 is about walking and cycling, and then 3.3 is about cars. I just thought buses might be something that could warrant a mention. There are sort of pockets of Gawler that are not currently really serviced by public transport at all, and that's something that we should be working towards, I think.
Yes. Helen?
Yeah, just again, in 1.1 we talked about enhanced views and vistas through the provision of open space. Part of sustainable and respectful cultural and built heritage is about enhancing the views and vistas of our built heritage. So I don't know how we express that, but I think that type of covers the conversation that's preceded this, where we don't want to lose the the scale and the cohesiveness of some of our heritage areas, not just the main street. I'm thinking about Churchill. I'm thinking about other areas that have got. So, for example, you know, the cemeteries in the town. So I don't know. That would take quite a bit of thought about how we protect the views and vistas associated with it.
So you're looking at 2.1.3, strategically plan for new and support existing community, social and
No, I'm
recreational.
actually still back at 2.2. Sorry, I didn't get that in.
2.1.2? 2.1.2? Is that where you at? 2.1.1.
Yeah, somewhere in there. And it's too hard at the moment. I can't actually think how because it's quite a large point anyway. But it's the thing. Maybe it's part of complementing Gawler's character. Maybe it's somewhere in there. It's so that we don't end up like the hotel in the city that has, you know, tiny scale old building versus a huge, humongous tower block. That's the type of concept that I'm referring to.
Okay. So that's really good feedback, David. 2.3, encourage appropriate growth, renewal and development of rail corridors and key station precincts. I think that works. Shape active travel networks that promote health and wellbeing. That covers off on pedestrian linkages, cycling linkages and and public transport. I think that covers off on active travel networks. Investigate and deliver strategies to mitigate traffic congestion and improve parking opportunities within Gawler. I know the car is king, but don't we want people to get out of their cars and walk into our shops? Isn't that what we want people to do? Yeah, Councillor Koch, sorry.
That's fine. 2.3.1, this is where I would say we needed the sort of a multi-storey building to develop the TODs, the transport-orientated developments. That's where we should be putting those.
Transport-orientated developments.
Yeah, the
so
TODs.
That could be incorporated.
Yeah, in there. I mean, because we were supposed to have that around Oleander Waters at Tambling.
Yes.
And that was on the cards, and we're getting some development around the Gawler railway station.
I think the TODs have come back.
Yeah, I think that was the buzzword a couple of years ago, but it seems to have dropped off.
It's come back.
Yeah, I mean, it should happen at Monopara. It could happen when we moved Cuddler, for example. You probably could have a little TOD around there. Because you need to get people out of cars, and you need to get people using the system instead of, and by having the TODs, you know, you're close to the rail, so therefore you're going to use it instead of jumping in a car. And because what can happen is someone can jump in a car and you think, they can just drive down to the railway station, and they just keep on going.
I'm a little bit concerned about investigate and deliver strategies to mitigate traffic congestion. So do we build an overpass? Do we build because that was a suggestion previously. Tolls on one bridge and tolls on. So.
Well, we're going to have that for Gawler.
So if you build an overpass, investigate and deliver strategies to mitigate traffic congestion. I just think that that we could be careful what we wish for. Be careful what we wish for. Yeah, where we don't. Well. Investigate and deliver strategies to mitigate traffic congestion. So that tells me that we're going to build another road, or we're going to build an overpass, or I think we need to sort of bring that down a bit. Yeah.
Okay. Just through the chair, I think the way I would interpret it is not that it's going down to that detail at all, that in fact it's referring basically to the integrated transport plan. That would work out the network. We don't need to get into the detail of whether there's bypasses, tollways or congestion charges. It's really just a direction to deal with our growth framework. And I think that's, without getting into specifics about how the integrated transport plan works, I think that it's high level enough that it probably gives us that flexibility.
Well, I disagree. Yeah, investigate and deliver strategies to mitigate traffic congestion. I think we can reword that. Yes, Brian.
Thanks, Mayor. It's interesting to hear the conversations that are going, because I'm sure a lot of you know of the developments that are proposed for our area close by, especially the huge one at Rosewoody, and talked about one already thinking about out at Concordia. The largest shopping centre turnover-wise in Gawler is Gawler Green. Who would have ever said that that would have beat the other Coles up the top of the street? And you try and go over there Sunday morning to go to Bunnings, and you'll be very lucky to find a car park. And I've said for a long time, I think as elected members, we miss out on a lot of communication. At the moment, I'm not exactly sure how many phone calls. Does anybody know what the huge construction is halfway up through Williston on the right-hand side? A magnificent building going up. Does any elected member know? Because I don't know. So, anyway, and then...
The childcare centre, Brian, on Main North Road, Williston. Is that what you're talking about? The childcare centre?
I don't know. It's on the right, that's all I know.
It's a massive building.
Massive building going up. Somebody said it's a childcare centre or a retirement home.
They knocked 2 cottages down to build it.
No. Okay. So the other thing too is, opposite the post office, there's been big discussions about a huge building going there. And we know the nightmare that it is at this particular point in time for motor cars. There's also, all of the shops have been brought up from the National Trust to the actual lane and so forth. As an court, we've heard about these things being talked about. And Bryce and David have done a lot of work, as well as council members, putting this together. We as elected members, when we come to say, yes, that's good, bad or ugly or whatever it may be, should know future developments that may be happening in the next 5 years. You know what I mean? And to me, it seems like Gawler's certainly going to go ahead at a rate of knots. I mean, a house now, Christopher Hurst from Elders was telling me the other day, 2 days and they're sold in this town. Yeah. This is a town where people want to come. But the traffic is literally a nightmare. So when you're discussing the points about type of businesses and things like that, but then if these businesses on our circle around us towards Two Wells, out at Rosewoody and Concordia, Main Street could come quite quiet. So we've really got to know, and whatever plans we put into place will be plans that we would hope that would head us into the future so that people want to be really happy living in our town.
Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, I think in terms of mitigating traffic congestion and that sort of thing, I think that also is, to go back to the buses, it goes to that sort of thing as well, I think, because there was an interesting observation by one of the planners for our transport study that the buses in Gawler are designed to get people into the city. So if you are going into work, the buses are perfect because it goes on a loop to the Gawler train station where you can take the train. If you are trying to get around Gawler, I made the observation that, to me, Williston Oval and the Salisbury City Centre are the same distance apart because they're both about 40 minutes away. One's a 40-minute walk and one's a 10-minute walk and a 30-minute train ride. But for someone using public transport, there are parts of the town that are more accessible than others. There are parts of the town that I just wouldn't go to if I didn't have to because there's just not things built around. There are parts of, Gawler East and that, for example, that are not... don't really have a meaningful public transport route. No. And that has to do with traffic congestion because people would be avoiding the congestion if they felt they had a route where they could not be dealing with congestion. So that's sort of why I wanted to, I guess, have the bus stuff as a priority as well.
It links in, doesn't it? Yeah, does link in. So public transport, we're not investing in, well, state government invests in public transport, and we need to advocate to state government to improve our public transport to relieve our traffic congestion. You know, yes.
I think with that point 3 there, I personally think that traffic congestion is something which is important to deal with. Only thing that going from the old version to the new one, it did mention design and develop pedestrian-friendly areas. I think to some places in Evanston which are not particularly pedestrian-friendly, but probably should be. I think it ties into what the Deputy Mayor was saying with public transport connectivity as well, that if we had that connectivity and sort of sensible routes, which is a hard task, and to get the capacity to run the buses, I understand, is a very hard task, but I think that would improve the traffic congestion. The other thing was first I say with being pedestrian friendly, I think that's where we see the benefit in the main street, is where people are able to walk around and shop and they feel safe there. There's a lot of cars that go through the main street that don't, are just using it as a thoroughfare, and I think getting that integrated transport strategy right to allow that to be a pedestrian-friendly precinct is actually how we boost business, and people actually have an intention of going there rather than going, I'm not even going to try to get to the shops in the main street and I'm going to go somewhere else. I know people who shop up, who live in Gawler East, who go and shop in Gawler Green because, there's no chance on a Saturday of really getting into the shops at the main street there. So the only other thing is the parking opportunities. I personally think the word opportunities is potentially wrong, because parking opportunities could look something like flatten everything and put a massive car park, and there's more opportunity to park. I think maybe a different word which indicates that the car parking is appropriate for the area, so there is that parking where people can get off, walk around the precinct, which they're wanting to do. But like examples like the main street, where, or even Adelaide Road, where you might have people ducking in and out of businesses quickly, that there's actually the ability to have some high turnover parking arrangements there, appropriate loading bays where they need to be for, people getting stuff into areas, Adelaide Road, Williston, etc. So that's my comment there.
Yeah, I think it can be better wordsmithed. Shape active travel networks that promote health and well-being. I think that covers off on pedestrian. We could add pedestrian linkages. We could add public transport, but I think shape active travel networks. It covers off on active travel networks. So with pedestrian, cycling, public transport, and I think that covers off on travel networks that promote health and well-being. I think that works. Investigate and deliver, I'm not particularly fond of that, but Oh, yes, Councillor Lorna.
Thank you. Just touching on 2.3.3, I think we get a little bit too hung up over trying to dissect exactly what that is. We've got issues with parking, we've got issues with traffic and that in there. This is an overall covering goal of what we're trying to do. This is a problem that we need to address. It's in here with our goals to address it. We've got really good staff out here doing plans and procedures and all that underground to actually show us what these are at the end of the day. While we're trying to change this, I'm not really following it. It's something that I believe that needs to be there, and how it's written is what it is, sort of thing. So I'm a little bit confused of why we're getting so tied up and trying to break down into the area where the staff need to be operating, not us.
Well, I know traffic congestion is a problem, but we need to probably attach public transport in there to, to advocate for more public transport.
But that becomes part of the strategy. So we're saying we need a strategy we'll look at these strategies and improve parking opportunities. That's what staff go away and come back to us with these strategies.
But
We don't have it.
I hear what you're saying, but mitigate traffic congestion. We're talking about the car is king. So we want people to get out of their cars. We want people to get out of their cars, and.
Sorry, yeah, I appreciate that, but that's what this is saying. So they're creating the strategies to do that. They're going to come back to us with the strategies. We're not here to create the strategies for them. They are going to come to us with the strategies. We'll go, yeah, we think that's a good idea. We'll pass it. Someone correct me if I'm wrong, but this is an overriding goal that we've got as the council.
Councillor Koch and then Helen Hennessy.
I'm looking at 2.3.3. I'm not sure what we can do to mitigate traffic congestion. We do have traffic congestion, and it's school drop-off and pick-up and people going to work and coming home for it. Every single community in Australia would have the same issues. Absolutely everybody. Yeah. I don't think we're any different. We're probably better off a little bit than anywhere else in Australia. So I don't know what you do unless the schools stagger their starting and finishing times, because people need to drive. People drive to work. People need to drop the kids off to school. And I do not know what. I really don't know what we can do. Really, it's setting us up for failure almost.
It affects every single city in Australia, because when I went to the Australian local government ALGA meeting, I was up on stage and I raised the issue of parking. And you know how many people put up their hands? Everybody. So it is an issue. It is an issue. And look, investigate and deliver strategies to mitigate traffic congestion and improving parking opportunities within Gawler. I think it can be better. It can be delivered better. Helen Hennessy?
Yeah, I just wanted to support what Councillor Solomon was saying. I think if we add back in some words about pedestrian-friendly areas, that does provide a bit of a balance, I think, against the points you're making, Mayor, about the car situation. So perhaps we could see some of those words come back in.
2.3.4 in the old plan, design and develop pedestrian-friendly areas. And that might cover off on your point, Councillor Solomon. Yeah.
I think it's. I understand what Councillor Lorne is getting at, but I think the way it's phrased, traffic congestion has nothing to do with pedestrians, and I think there needs to be a separate point about pedestrian-friendly stuff, because it's not quite the same point. It's just not captured in there at all, and I think that's what Councillor Hennessy's alluding to.
So we could put an extra point in there, David.
Sorry, I'll press the button, it goes off. Can I just add to that, because isn't that in 2.3.2, shape active travel networks that promote health and wellbeing? Isn't that our pedestrian?
I believe it is. I believe it is.
I feel so.
Shape active travel networks that promote health and wellbeing, but we could add an extra point and say, welcome pedestrian living. We could wordsmith that. Yeah. I
think my point with pedestrian, from my point of view, is not about travel as such. Like, that's talking about travel, and like obviously you want people to walk places, but I'm not talking about walking 30 minutes. I'm sort of like bumbling around in a park or the main street or on Adelaide Road somewhere, like not actively seeking to get from point A to point B, but living in that moment and being a pedestrian without the point of going anywhere.
Well, people go outside their houses to do exercise. They walk around the town. They go into shops. They buy stuff. They don't go out of their houses for no good reason. And I think that we need more footpaths. We need more footpaths, you know, so, yeah. We just haven't got enough footpaths. And I think that if we get more footpaths, people will use those footpaths and walk around the town. More money, I know it's more money. Yeah. But, yeah, we're 30 years behind, so, yeah. So we can put up, yes,
Yep.
David?
If I may, in terms of what Councillor Solomon was talking about, my understanding is those destination pocket parks, places to linger rather than travel. So that doesn't actually talk to the objective here, which is managed growth through people, movement and connection specifically, as in connecting place to place. However, it is referenced later in our community, social rec, facilities, open spaces, etc., about that kind of thing.
So I might
yep.
move on to 2.4. I might move on to 2.4. Yep.
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, a few things. So 3.3, improve parking opportunities. I actually like parking opportunities because it's not just talking about, this is again high level thinking, not just talking about new car parks, but, you know, talking about things like didn't make the budget but wayfinding signage for existing car parks, or talking about how we can use...
We're on goal 2. We're on goal 2.
Yep.
You're on goal 3.
No, 2.3.3. So when we're looking at improving parking opportunities,
right.
I actually like parking opportunities because that's talking about not just physical car parks, talking about opportunities beyond the scope of that. So I think that's quite good. In regards to active travel networks, I like shape as the verb. I like that, David. That's good. That's a good doing word. But maybe potentially safe active travel networks, potentially when we're talking about getting from A to B as a pedestrian. I think it could be appropriate to include safety in there, or safe networks, just given the nature of pedestrians and high-use vehicles. I think that would be really good. And then discussing what you mentioned, Mayor, about, and Councillor Solomon, about, I guess, the lingering, not getting from A to B. I think that's probably covered in goal 3 when we're talking about a healthy and active, safe community. And I missed out before we changed slides, Mayor, just not to go back too far, but going back to 2.2, when we were talking about, Councillor Hennessy talked about maintaining the historical character of the neighbourhood. So we weren't talking about just the main street. I just was writing, I like strengthen promotion of adaptive reuse of historical buildings, maintaining the historical character of the neighbourhood as a potential, mixing those goals when we talked about adaptive reuse. And I think you're referring to not just the main street, but other pockets of the town that are historic in nature, historical character of the neighbourhood. There's some words. So I thought maybe they could be intertwined as a potential third point for 2.2.
Yep.
Second what Ethan said about the second point, the promoting health and well-being, I think is a bit too, like, not everyone who's doing walking is doing it, you know, for, I don't know, on the way to yoga, you know, like, it's, you know, it is also, like, kids walking across areas, are they safe? Is there good lighting along those footpaths? Like I think, maybe a bit more on the, that's not just about the idea that footpaths are there just because it's healthy, but also there are people who are using the footpaths that could, or that aren't using the footpaths because they're not there, and that's a safety issue, or they are using footpaths but they probably shouldn't be because that's a safety issue because the lights aren't there. So I just thought, that might be worthwhile.
Okay.
And just to add to that, sorry, Mayor, I was just going to say, if we want to actively promote active travel, then, step one is it needs to be safe. Like, if that's the key part. So I think it's important that we include that in there. And, yeah, great point about the lighting, Cody.
I think David's writing all these words down. 2.4, local economic activity to create local job opportunities and generate increased local wealth. Promote Gawler as a regional hub for business. Engage with business, state and federal governments to support entrepreneurship, investment and job creation. Investigate opportunities to enhance the visitor experience and continue to advocate for increased investment in tourism. Yes.
I was wondering if there might be a benefit of something about working regionally or collaborating regionally, because we sort of have promote Gawler as a hub, but, growth means, having, I don't know, like growth within the region is something that we are concerned about.
Well, we could add that in 2.4.2, engage with business, work in partnership with
there's nothing about
regional authorities.
There's nothing, because it says businesses, state, federal governments. There's a tier of government that we're not working with according to this, So I think that is, a valuable addition. I don't know.
So you want local in there?
Yeah, I mean, I think that is something that we do. Like, that's what Norma is. That's like local collaborations. I just think it's something that, I don't know, it's not identified in there, but it is something that we do and that we do treat as a priority, so it should probably be in there.
Engage with business, local, state and federal governments to support entrepreneurship. We also need to partner with regional authorities. No. I'm talking about RDA. Yeah. So engage with business, go into partnership with regional authorities, local, state and federal governments to support entrepreneurship, investment and job creation. Yeah. Investigate opportunities to enhance the visitor experience. I think that's not too bad, and continue to advocate for increased investment in tourism. Promote Gawler as a regional hub for business and services. Okay. Are we going to go over the page?
Sorry, Mayor, just a couple
Yes.
things.
Yeah.
Just looking at the original, like the current plan, it talks about education, and we don't mention education in the updated one. I guess I'm just wondering, is there the potential, do we need to? Originally it had support existing education providers and encourage additional opportunities and facilities in Gawler. Again, I don't actually know that goal. Is that a bit too out of our scope in general? Is that the reasoning potentially why it was removed?
I don't know.
So contextually, we lobbed schools, education, etc. within the business category because they are businesses within themselves.
Mm-hmm.
We're trying to refine it, not make it too wordy. So in the same vein, we may look at 2.4.2 being engaged with business, government, regional something too, rather than listing all local, state and federal, because we just say government.
Yep.
So those sorts of things, that's where we're coming from, Councillor White, just condensing it into there.
Yep, no, that's good. That's really good. And it probably comes, and like the regional hub for business too, it can be tied in that, just the last point, 4.3, in regarding investigating opportunities to enhance visitor experience. I'd probably like to see investigate and deliver, or investigate and implement. I just feel we have done quite a bit of investigating, and we don't need to investigate more. We've got, for example, the tourism plan that's sitting there.
You want implement?
Yeah, I think investigate and implement, or investigate and delivers, keeping it consistent. I'd like to see some action in there, just because I think we can still investigate, that's good, but I think it's time to deliver on this front, as we know when we look at those reports, when they're only 20% completed. That's just my 2 cents though.
I'd agree strongly with that.
So I'm going to go over to goal 3.
Oh, just a quick on that. Just to clarify, so did you say, David, that that we put schools under the category of business? Just wondering what the logic is behind that, especially with the government schools. What that kind of logic is there?
So the logic is that if it's a non-government school, it's a business.
Yeah.
As we understand they are. But we're
because
also engaging with government, which would incorporate government agencies such as the Department of Education.
Oh, yes, so we're talking about 2.4.2 rather than, yeah, sorry. I thought it was referring to, Councillor White was referring to 2.4.1, but that makes more sense. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm going to go over the page to goal 3. A healthy, active, safe, engaged community. Gawler to be an inclusive community with quality health and social wellbeing services, promote healthy lifestyles and community wellbeing, provide inclusive services and programs that support our diverse community, support volunteering opportunities that respond to community needs, advocate for improved community services and programs. 3.2, provide community sport and recreational facilities that respond to local and regional needs. Provide accessible places for social interaction that embrace community lifestyles. Strategically plan for new and support existing sporting and recreation facilities that enhance community wellbeing. Activate Gawler's civic, urban and recreational facilities by providing opportunities for local artists and encouraging increased investment in the arts and creative sector. Advocate to all spheres of government, the private sector and non-government organisation for increased and improved healthcare facilities.
Mayor, if I may, I think we've unfortunately dropped the word healthcare. So I think we still need to have in 3.1.4 advocate for improved healthcare and community services and programs.
3.1.4,
Yeah.
is that where you are?
Yes.
Advocate for improved community services and programs.
I'd just put the word healthcare and community services and programs. So I'd stick the word healthcare back in there, simply because that covers. I mean, I understand that the original 3.1.1 was a shopping list, but I think most of it can be scooped up under healthcare. So we're talking about mental health, we're talking about disabilities and things like that.
Okay, so 3.2.4, advocate to all spheres of government, private sector and non-government organisation for increased and improved healthcare facilities.
Hang on, where are you now? Sorry.
3.2.4.
Oh, okay.
The last point, it's got healthcare facilities there.
So, if I may, 3.1 is all about services and 3.2 is all about facilities. So if we're looking at healthcare services, we can certainly add that to 3.1.4 as Councillor Hennessy suggested, and we can wordsmith that in to define that in the services aspect. It's in the facilities aspect already, as the Mayor's pointed out, 3.2.4, so that balances it well.
I think it does. Any other comments, Helen?
On 3.2.3, so I'm bouncing along.
Yes.
I don't quite understand. Activate Gawler's civic, urban and recreational facilities. The word urban seems weird, and I wonder if the word community shouldn't be used instead. I don't understand what urban means.
Activate Gawler's civic, community and recreational facilities by providing opportunities for local artists and encouraging increased investment in the arts and creative sector.
So from my recollection with the discussion at the staff level, we were trying to say areas of public realm without saying public realm, because we didn't agree with the terminology about public realm, which is where we came to urban environments rather than just community facilities. But we can definitely look at wordsmithing that and come back with something in that space.
Deputy Mayor, would
Yeah.
you like to speak?
And one last one, sorry, to jump back to 3.2.1.
Yes.
3.2.1, sorry, I'm losing my numbers. Provide accessible places for social interaction that embrace community lifestyles. I don't quite know what embrace community lifestyles mean. That's where I actually had thought that we could say, provide accessible places for social interaction that strengthen community cohesiveness and connectiveness.
Well, we could.
So which
use
picks
that,
up on
that
the
embrace
discussion that we had.
Connectiveness.
Yes, strengthen community cohesiveness and connections.
Cohesiveness and connections.
Yeah,
Okay.
rather than...
Community lifestyles. Yeah.
And one more, sorry.
Yes.
I really had to go on this one. 3.2.3.
Yes.
I would prefer, rather than talk about local artists, I would use the word artisans. I know now we're down to fine use of words, but artists to most people means people who paint. Artisans covers a much broader terminology for creative people.
David's writing that down. Okay. Any other comments, Deputy Mayor, and then Councillor Solomon?
Yeah, yeah, look, artisans makes me think of stonemasons or something, so... yeah.
Stonemason.
Yeah, yeah, I agree on urban. I think the idea of civic meaning like the civic centre, recreational meaning like the sports centre, and urban meaning like Walker Place, presumably. But yeah, urban is a little odd, yeah, so...
Okay. Artisans? Yes?
Let me know if I'm missing it somewhere, but just under 3.1, the previous one, I talked about disability access across the town. Obviously, I think that's captured in the new 3.1 in regard to services and programs, but general access, as in physical access, not relating to services or programs, I can't find that, and I think that's probably a fairly important one to have in there. I know... yeah.
3.1.2, provide inclusive services and programs that support our diverse community.
Yeah, so that's in regard to services and programs, but in terms of things that are not services or programs, I think the last plan captured disability access in there, but this one doesn't necessarily cover that because
So we thought we'd covered that in 3.2.1 about providing accessible places.
For social interaction that embrace community lifestyles.
Yep, that.
Provide accessible places for social interaction that embrace community lifestyles.
I did miss that, and yep, that's perfect.
Do you think that would address what you were saying?
Yeah, I think that covers it well. Yep.
Thank you. Any other comments about this page? Yes. Ethan.
Oh, thanks, Mayor. Yeah, just a couple of things. So 3.2.2, strategically plan for new and support existing sporting rec facilities. I think when we're looking at 2030 plus, I'd probably like to see strategically plan and deliver or plan and implement. I just think, like we're currently doing that. It's an ongoing goal when we're looking at those facilities. I think I would like to see an action as well as the strategically plan. They're both equally as important in there. In regards to, Councillor Solomon picked it up. The inclusivity, I think, is included in the services, but 3.2.1, I think if we adjust to include community cohesiveness and connections, if there was something about accessibility or inclusiveness, both is good. But I think, Councillor Solomon, you're talking about as in accessible facilities, as in for so all members of the community can access it. I think that could be tied into that 3.2.1, maybe a little bit clearer. And in regards to, local artists, here's another one. You could say local creatives or local people involved in the creative industry. Just something maybe a little bit, that does stretch out a little bit more as well, but, happy with whatever's used there. And lastly, Yeah, I think when we're looking at healthcare, so it was just some positive feedback more so. The original plan has, Councillor Harris, did you say it was like a wish list? Yeah, it's very, very deep, like too detailed for a high level goal. I just wanted to say that last 3.2.4 I thought was a really well written goal in regards to healthcare facilities.
I think it is too.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think we have to advocate for healthcare facilities. We have no choice because people put that very high on their agenda. Okay, I'm going to go to goal 4.
So I did just notice one point in there that I agreed to before, but I don't quite, which is that the 3.2.1, where it says provide accessible places for social interaction that embrace community lifestyles. I am still slightly worried that that's not quite what was in the old plan in terms of improved disability access across the town, because to me that talks about places for social interaction. Of course, people, you know, with a disability don't just want to go and interact socially and get a service. That, you know, the whole town should be accessible, and I'm worried that that's also limiting it to us as a council creating that, rather than putting the onus on businesses, etc., to try and make their spaces
I'm
accessible.
reading 3.1.6 on the old plan. Provide a socially inclusive place to interact and access services, collections, programs and events that enhance the life and lifestyle of the community. Improve disability access across the town and promote inclusion. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, that second one, because I think the first one is limiting it to a place for social interaction, which I think is quite reductive of someone with, what we think about people with disability, whereas we're talking about the whole town being accessible.
Provide inclusive services and programs. So, David, do you have any comments about how you've structured these strategies?
So, in terms of that, we're trying to make this around community sport and rec facilities. The accessibility could come through the movement of people and connection, which is in the growth area, improving that. We're just trying to work it through. Or is it covered in these facilities responding to local and regional needs? Because if the need is for accessibility, is that enough rather than having a specific, or we can try and strengthen 3.2.1 to cover yours as well?
I don't necessarily think it's a need.
3.1.4 in the old plan, improve disability access across the town and promote inclusion. How do we incorporate that in one of these aims?
Perhaps, Mayor, it could go back into 2.3, the managing the growth for the real connection of people and places. Because if you think about it, the disability access, so take, for example, Goose Island Bridge and the fact that that is not complacent, that becomes more about, it's a form of making sure people, travel networks or whatever we're going to, it's about the movement of people, I think Councillor Solomon is saying, around the town.
So
I think
I think it fits with goal 3. I think it fits with goal 3 because we're talking about inclusive services, we're talking about a diverse community, we're talking about accessible places for social interaction that embrace community lifestyle. So I think it fits here.
As long, I don't necessarily sit in either camp at the moment, but I think as long as there's something in there, I think from my understanding, the prevailing view of disability is not that it's a need at the moment, is not that it's a need to be addressed, but simply that things are built in a way which is inaccessible. Stairs cases are not naturally occurring in nature. That's something which is built with an inherent barrier. If, we can choose to either build something which is accessible for everyone or to build something which is only accessible to some people. And I think that's what I want to have sort of reflected in there across the whole town, and that we're still doing that work to make sure not just our facilities are accessible, but everyone is aiming towards that goal.
So could we put across the town or something like that? Because I'm hearing from Councillor Solomon.
I hear what Councillor Solomon is saying and agree, so we'll wordsmith that up.
Yep.
Where it fits within either goal 2 or goal 3, we'll work on that. but get where you're coming from. So, yep, thank you.
I'm going to move to goal 4. Goal 4, create and maintain a healthy natural environment, conserve and enhance local biodiversity, manage the 3 river corridors as significant social, cultural and environmental assets, protect areas of native vegetation for present and future generations, collaborate with key stakeholders to deliver conservation initiatives that enhance natural landscapes, support sustainable use of natural resources and minimise waste, investigate affordable, appropriate and sustainable water supply use and reuse options, and I can hear Ethan White saying implement, encourage a circular economy approach to waste management and educate the community to implement the waste management hierarchy, advocate and champion ways to minimise energy consumption and water use across Gawler, foster an inclusive approach to sustainable water management by incorporating water-sensitive urban design principles and criteria into community infrastructure planning, act on climate change, implement targeted mitigation and adaptation strategies in response to climate change, protect and enhance greening across Gawler, promote, educate and advocate for sustainable development that reduces climate change impacts, build disaster resilience to better respond to natural disasters. Yes, Councillor Kosh.
I just want to make a quick statement. 4.1.3, protect areas of native vegetation for present.
Oh yeah, 4.1.3, yep.
I just want to say there's what's called a 100-year rule. For example, if you clear some native vegetation and grow wheat on it, to revegetate that will take you 100 years and cost you 100 times the revenue you got from growing wheat. That's the general rule when you're trying to redo native landscapes.
Yes.
A native landscape, for example, a grassland, might have up to 100 species, and that assemblage has probably been there for about 80,000 years, generation after generation after generation. So if we have an area of native vegetation, in particular like grasslands, we should value that incredibly, really, really value that, because that's been there for 80,000 years, and if it's lost, it'll cost you 100 times what you got out of it to replace it. It's so precious, it's not funny. I mean, I've been involved with trying to replicate, re-establish native grasslands for 30 odd years, and it's bloody hard, really, really hard. It's one of the hardest things I've ever done. So we just need to really, I just want to say to everybody, it is so important that we protect those areas. It doesn't matter how small it is, it's been there for 80,000 years potentially. It needs to be respected. So, yes, that's...
So you protect areas of native vegetation for present and future generations.
You have to.
You agree with that statement?
Oh yes, and I think if people just understand how precious they are, that they've been there for, and the plants, the animals, the microbes in the soil have been there for 80,000 years odd, and and we could do something to destroy them overnight by putting superphosphate on, just something so simple. Yeah. They're gone, and I've seen it here in Gawler where we've had really nice, pristine areas that we've covered in mulch and destroyed it overnight. I mean, it's just so sad. Anyway, I'll talk about some other things, but yep.
Anything else in this document that that is stark to you?
Yes, 4.2.1, when you talk about affordable, appropriate, sustainable water, I'm concerned if you're just going to use water from Bolivar, you might end up creating a sodic soil. And I've talked about that before, because the sodium is the bit that takes the fat out of, cleans clothes, and it builds up, and that's the sodium, and you get what's called sodic soils, and the soils collapse. And I've seen it on areas where it's been used to irrigate ovals, and the soil's basically collapsed, which is just shocking. The circular economy, yes, that's fantastic. That's why we should be encouraging, for example, the weekly green bins. Fantastic. When it comes to 4.2.3, I'm not sure whether that's for Gawler town of Gawler or the whole town, I'm not sure. And then 4.3.2, protect and enhance greening across Gawler. I've said this over and over again. You have to be careful that you don't just put in trees because they become the climax vegetation, and you push out all the other little ecosystems that you need to have. You know, all your grasslands.
So you would protect and enhance greening
Well, I would
other matters?
Yeah, I'd just be careful if that's just talking about trees, because if you do just put down trees, that will be your climax vegetation, and you'll lose all the other
because
habitats.
I know staff are doing down in Dead Man's Pass. They're actually creating a microenvironment around the tree.
Unfortunately, yes. I mean, that's the middle story. But if you just plant trees everywhere, eventually you'll just shade out all your grasslands, and you'll get noisy miners. Fantastic.
Noisy miners.
So
we've got
just
miners in our house, and
yeah, I know, and
that's
the problem, because people think they're doing the right thing by planting trees. We thought that was right. The men with the trees, blah blah blah, was involved in that. But anyway, you need to be really careful that the greening strategy just is not trees, because you'll just end up.
So you need a biodiversity.
Yeah. Well, I would be talking about there is just working with the biodiversity plan, really.
Protect and enhance greening across Gawler.
Yeah.
It's a high level, it's fine.
I know. I'm just sort of saying, just be really careful that that we're not creating. We're not destroying what we're trying to maintain and enhance.
Is there anything missing here that you don't like?
No, I think that's all fine. I just wanted to make those comments.
Okay. Any other comments? Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, so in the old plan there was stuff about, dealing with feral birds and animals and responsible dog and cat ownership, and I think it makes sense to take that out of the top level, but is there anywhere in here where that would apply? I'm just if under this new community plan a dog and cat management thing came up, which points in the community plan would it come under? Because it doesn't seem to really apply to any of this stuff that got put in here.
Yeah. David?
So I think I'm right in saying we've covered that in 4.1.4. So that's collaboration, because we don't do that necessarily ourselves, it's with agencies. So collaborating with stakeholders to deliver conservation initiatives, and that initiative in this language is dealing with feral animals or bird problems or those sorts of things. So that's where it sits from our perspective.
What it says here, collaborate with key stakeholders to deliver conservation initiatives that enhance natural landscapes.
Yep.
Does that cover off on dog and cat management?
So through the chair, if we look at feral animals, and part of that is dog and cat management, but it's also about birds, it's about other rodents, all those sorts of things. If we are delivering initiatives that enhance the natural landscape, we are dealing with those animals, so to speak.
Okay. All right. Any other comments? Yeah.
Thanks, Mayor. First of all, again, it's consolidated what I think is too specific in the existing plan into a really nice, some really nice, clear, consistent goals that I think would align. I think the majority of our community would agree with everything that's being said. Yeah. Just a few comments. So, consolidating the riverine environment into the Three Rivers Corridor in 4.1.2 I think is really good. The protect areas of native vegetation for present and future generations, I read that as short and long-term solutions or projects and initiatives, which I think is fantastic. When we go through, Mayor, you mentioned about investigate affordable, appropriate, sustainable water supply, and how I've been tossing it up. I actually think because this is actually a new goal that investigate. I'm happy to just leave it at investigate, because we're looking, this is, I think, a newer area, looking at our existing plan, a newer area in regards to sustainable water use. So investigating in this scenario, I think, makes sense. When we look at advocating and championing 4.2.3, I don't really like champion, but I actually think in this scenario it works, because champion as in we're doing it, but we're also being leaders in this space, which I think is quite important when we're looking at energy and water usage. You know, as a local government authority, we have a responsibility to lead and champion that. So I think that's actually works really well. And yeah, I've got a pat on the back to the final one about good design principles for water in future community infrastructure planning. That's great. That's really good. That is, and I would say, you know, ticks the boxes on regards to the climate change goal as well. It all ties in, but I think that's actually some really, for a top level, you know, very like motherhood statement, that's a pretty good goal, and I think we should be pretty proud to actually put that into, I can see that being put into action, so hopefully in 10 years' time this will be a tick, so yeah, well done.
Any other comments? I'm going to go to goal 5, provide strategic leadership. Actively engage with the community, embrace community expertise and experience, proactively collaborate locally and regionally, advocate for the needs and aspirations of the community, be a high-performing organisation, deliver effective services for community and economic benefit, continuously improve to eliminate waste and increase efficiency, quality and community satisfaction to ensure long-term sustainability, provide effective governance that enables strategic, transparent and informed decision-making, consistently provide a quality customer experience, listen and adapt to community feedback.
I'd just like to congratulate staff for putting that, because we had a discussion earlier about dividing it into 2 parts. One is the outward leading role, and the other one is being, you know, internal and making sure we're as effective as possible. Yeah. And I think that's done it. Certainly happened. And the 4 points under 5.1, spot on. Especially embrace community expertise and experience. There we have our proactive collaboration locally and regionally, which we've touched on earlier, as well as actively engage with the community. So I'm very happy. I think this page is particularly good.
Okay. Any other comments? Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, I'm just, so the old one had a couple of points, the 5.2.3 and 5.2.4 about, you know, fostering leadership opportunities and supporting the establishment of, you know, things to support future leaders. I'm just wondering, is that something that you would consider to be within the current 5.1?
I'll go to David and see what he wants to say.
Yes, we did think that was covered in 5.1 and across a couple of different ones, but 5.1.1, if you're actively engaging with the community, you are doing those things in terms of developing new leaders and mentoring, because it's an active engagement, not a passive, oh, you can just go and do that yourself. So we thought there, but also in with the embrace community expertise and experience as well. So if you're embracing that, you are assisting and developing and those sorts of things as well. Yep.
I'm just wondering with 5.1.2 there, the embrace community expertise and experience, is that sort of bringing in things like the co-design of certain things as well? Is that embracing, is that what it means by embracing that experience and expertise?
So yes, that would be an element, definitely, because there are other people outside the organisation who may be better experts than we are internally, so any kind of co-design facilitation, but also around our working groups and those sorts of things where we have community expertise on those working groups that give a new perspective to what we're doing and new ideas and often improvements. So yeah, it's all covered in that, we think.
Yeah, I think that's good and important there, just that, you know, there's obviously there's times where we engage and consult with our community, but there's other times where, you know, community are a partner in helping design some of those things, and we're not just going out asking opinion and that's it. It's there. So I think if that's captured in there, I think that's really good.
Okay, any other comments?
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, I just wanted to say, like Councillor Hennessy, I really like the way that this last page has gone, the last goal. I think it's a good name change from a strong, vibrant community to providing strategic leadership. Yeah, it didn't quite have the right context here. It does solidify ourselves as community leaders, which is great. I did have a question about the community expertise, but I think Councillor Solomon sort of answered that. I think that's actually better than, say, community feedback or community. I think that's actually saying that our community members are the experts in the particular areas that we're dealing with in community. So I think that's really good. And all of the doing words are delivering, providing, embracing, advocating. So it's showing that we are strategic. Like, as leaders in our community, we're actually not doing it. We're not sort of investigating it. We're actually here doing it. So I think that's, yeah, I really, really like goal 4 and 5. I think the work's been done really well. I did just have a question, Mayor, just from the holistic document, and David might be able to clarify it. In regards to, say, community events, what would you say that goal would fall under if we were talking about whether it's council run or supporting community events? Is it 1.2.1 or 1.2.2, or does that need to be tidied up a little bit? I just thought that was probably a key aspect that I don't know if it's missing or if I'm just sort of needs to be maybe a bit more specific.
Where do you think events comes in, David?
So definitely in 1.2, around that vibrant, active local community and those community activations of civic locations, rather than specifically saying an event, because it might be an event, it might be a program, it might be a seminar and all those sorts of things, definitely in there. But also around our services in 3.1. Yep. So services and programs in 3.1.2. So programs could be events, they could be those sorts of things as well. So we think it's covered in those sort of areas at a higher level, rather than getting to the tin tacks of listing everything. Yep.
Okay. We finished. So we've provided lots of feedback, and
Yes.
David will come back and present this at the CCS committee.
Yes, so we are presenting a report to CCS that will hopefully capture the feedback, look at the revised wording. Great that we don't have to do anything to 4 and 5. That's fantastic. And we'll work on the other little bits, tweaking. We are hoping that the committee will then recommend to council adoption of it for the purposes of public consultation on all of the words for the community plan. And we'll go out in hopefully June, July for a large period. So I think it's a 6 to 7 week consultation period. And then come back with a beautifully designed document for September sometime. So thank you very much for your engagement and comments. Appreciated.
I think we can go home now.
Just on that,
yes.
so the community consultation, will we be having workshops with the community or not? Or previously we've had
we've had workshops.
Workshops, and we've had people come in and we've talked about. Is that what we're having or not?
We're looking through what that engagement plan looks like at the moment. We're working on it. There'll definitely be a survey component, as we did with the Discover phase. Drop-in sessions, which is similar to that. Whether we do a formal community workshop, not really sure. We'll work through that as part of that engagement plan.
Would be good. Yeah. Thank you, David. Thank you, Bryce. You didn't say much. You took lots of notes. Okay, thank you. So